It has been almost 100 days since the 112th Congress convened with a new GOP-controlled House. And here to help us examine what's been accomplished, what still needs to get done, are the lawmakers themselves. And joining us live tonight from Washington, D.C. with a focus group of freshman Republican congressmen and women is the author of the bestseller Win, the president of the Word Doctors, the one and only Dr. Luntz. How are you, sir?
Sean, actually, I'm not the worst dressed person here for the first time in my life.
Wow. Ouch.
These 19 people here have been here for 98 days to be exact. And we had most of you here 98 days ago to ask you, could you really change the culture of Washington? So here's the question. By a show of hands, how many of you believe that you've already changed the culture of Washington? Changed it. Changing. Tell me how.
We've moved it from a conversation about whether or not to cut spending at all to how much we can cut and how much we should cut. And we're going to cut more.
I think we've made it more transparent. We've given people an opportunity to truly know the truth.
Now, you're the freshman class president.
Yes, sir.
How would you characterize what your class has done to change the culture of Washington?
I'd say it's 87 independent leaders with a focus on the next generation, not the next election.
You're one of the people who voted against the CR.
Yes, sir.
Has the culture of Washington changed in your mind?
I think it has, and I did vote against the CR because I'm blessed to represent a people who are prepared to reshape and resize government at a little quicker pace. But I can tell you this, I have respect for my colleagues in the freshman class who cast a different vote, and I don't question their commitment to cutting one iota.
You also voted against the CR.
Yes, well, I didn't quite buy into the logic of taking it down to $61 billion from 100. So as I saw it, we were at 39% of really where we needed to be. And I know as an entrepreneur that reducing the deficit is in and of itself an act of job creation. And this sense of urgency, this Congress this year addressing the deficit.
So I want to ask you, how specifically has the culture changed? Because there are millions of people, quite literally, watching tonight that aren't quite sure. How have you actually changed it?
Well, the fact that we're no longer speaking about how much we're spending and what we're cutting, what I think you're hearing here is that we're all on the same page, but we have different tactics. And I respect my colleagues that have different tactics, but at the end of the day, our goals are exactly the same, and that's to dramatically reduce spending and get our fiscal house in order.
You know, I think another big change has been that we don't spend much time talking about how we got here, whether it was Democrats or Republicans that dug this hole. We spend a lot of time thinking about what are the facts, how do we get out of this, and what's the path forward. I think that's a big shift.
Sean, you wouldn't have seen it, but we filmed just before we were here a segment that's going to air this weekend where we had 14, 15 average Americans going back and forth with these 19 freshmen, and it would have made you feel really good. The interaction that they had, the comments that they were making. There is real frustration with Washington among the American people, but it feels like they get it.
Let me give credit where credit is due. I believe they have changed the debate. I am encouraged by that. I do sense from everybody that's speaking there that there is a sense of urgency. I just want to ask this because I think I speak for a lot of people. When we have a $3.6 trillion budget this year, $1.65 trillion deficit, and we can't get $61 billion cut, the prorated rate from $100 billion, and it comes out to $28 billion, I know I speak for a lot of people in saying we're disappointed. And I want to get their reaction.
Go ahead.
You know what? That's a great question. Ask Harry Reid. We would have cut even more than $61 billion if we could. But we have got to deal with a Democrat-controlled Senate. We're dealing with a Democrat president. Ask Harry Reid why it's extreme to cut just a small percentage of the government.
And it comes down to tactics. I mean, there are some in this freshman class that have said, you know, we're not going to cut this until it gets to the $100 billion mark. And there are others like myself that say, hey, I will cut as much as we can every chance we get until we get to the debt ceiling, because it's all about the debt ceiling.
The truth of the matter is we're disappointed too. We started out, we wanted $100 billion. That was the goal. But we've got to be realistic. And we're only 1/2 of 1/3 of this government.
But this week we start moving from billions of dollars to trillions of dollars. That's where we start this week, to real cuts of trillions of dollars.
So I got to ask you, it's a show of hands. Sean raised a legitimate point. Have you been successful in cutting wasteful Washington spending? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Does any?
It's a step. It's a step. Here's the thing. We've cut more than any Congress, 4 times more than any Congress since World War II, and we've been here for 4 months. It's a step. If we were saying we're stopping here, by all means, be disappointed. But this is one step, and we're going to keep walking, baby. I voted for that cut, and I'm proud of it. It was the right step, and we're going to keep putting one foot in front of the other until we get this fiscal house in order.
Sean, they talked about the $38.5 billion cut, and it was the most. And in the conversations that we were having before we went on the air, to them, it is a step-by-step approach. And,
well, can I just respond to
the whole change?
I didn't know who that was, the last speaker, but what she said is encouraging to me. And what others have been saying there is encouraging to me because I just feel like if we're really spitting in the ocean with $61 billion. I think $6.2 trillion, which Paul Ryan proposes, is great. For example, how do we get the next level of cuts in? Are they willing to vote against raising the debt ceiling, for example?
Okay, let's do it.
I think I am no closer today, and I'm Jamie Herrera Butler, Washington State. I'm no closer today to voting to increase the debt ceiling than I was, 100 days ago, because I haven't seen anything that would cause me to do that. We're here to make a change, and that's what we're going to do.
And neither am I. I'm no closer today than I was when we first got here. We haven't seen the reforms that we need to even begin the discussion on raising the debt ceiling.
Last one.
Frank, I also would say this. The debt limit's been raised 74 times in this country, so it's not a debt limit. It's a debt suggestion. What this Congress can do, if it does nothing else, is quit politicizing it and start telling the truth to the American people. We are on the precipice of a catastrophe. This is not politics. This is real fiscal slough of despond.
And you're going to get a chance to do that when we come back to another segment. I'll tell you, Sean, the debt ceiling vote is going to be very powerful. Everybody's watching, and I want to know a little bit more about what they have to say.
I got to tell you, Frank, very encouraging, a lot of what I'm hearing. And we're going to come back. We'll have more with our Frank Luntz focus group of our freshman lawmakers. And then later, as schools in many states make very difficult decisions about budget cuts, one Minnesota district has reportedly allocated money to send its teachers to a, quote, white privilege conference while they just recently fired 94 teachers. That controversy and much more coming up straight ahead. And we continue now in Washington, D.C., where Frank Luntz is standing by with a focus group of freshman Republican congressmen and women. Frank, I got one question here. How far is this group willing to go on the debt ceiling? How far are they willing to go on the Ryan budget? For example, are they willing to shut down the government? Because the House has the power to stop these things. How far are they willing to go on those two issues specifically?
How far are you willing to go?
Hey, when it comes right down to it, Frank, when it comes right down to it, I think we have to pay for our fiscal sins instead of our kids and grandkids. And that's how far I'm willing to go.
To make a difference.
How far are you willing to go?
There's a difference in a government shutdown between not passing a CR and reaching the statutory limit on debt. And we still have to be honest with the American people as to what a government shutdown actually looks like under a debt ceiling issue.
Well, Sean, the thing I will tell you is that one of the things none of the agencies tell us is about what assets can be liquidated. They only want us to see the liability sheet. There are a lot of assets out there that we don't need, that we own and have to pay a lot to maintain.
I want to see some real structural change, a change that will ensure the American people that we're not going to keep going down this road. As Trey has said, we can't keep on doing this. So some real structural change.
I'm going to give you the best compliment that I can. You're probably the most serious member of the 87, which will get me into trouble. I ask you as a serious man, is this Congress serious about change? And are they prepared to go to the limit to make it happen?
I think that what we have been able to do, and since we got here, is forcing this Congress to be serious about change. I think that what you saw last week with a lot of the demagogic, emotional rhetoric is that we are challenging people, and you saw a lot of intellectual dishonesty out there and lack of integrity. So I think that if there is an opportunity for us to get the fiscal ship of state of the United States of America back on track, if there's an opportunity to secure the future and the legacy of this republic, these 87 members that you sent up here to Washington, D.C. are going to be the vanguard which will make it happen.
What have they said about you back in your district because of how you voted?
Well, the thing is, I explained to him that the stopgap measure, I definitely want to make sure that my brothers and sisters in arms did not have to worry about continuing to be paid. But when I come around to the real decision, which will be this week, I think that, as an airborne sergeant once told me, if you set the bar low, you're going to jump low. We got to set the bar high.
Sean, I was asking them in the break about what's happening back in their districts, and the accusations from the left against them have been absolutely horrific. It would really frighten you if you knew what they were claiming about these people.
Well, we heard it all last week. I mean, they want to kill women. They want to stop women from getting cancer screenings and mammograms. They want old people not to get their meals. I think the American people have seen this playbook before. But I don't want to beat a dead horse here, and I would, with respect, what does it mean when the debt ceiling vote comes up? If somebody wants to explain this, and what does it mean if they do not vote to raise it? What does it mean if they have to shut the government down? What would that mean in terms of what happens to the country?
Go ahead.
I think it's important to realize the debt ceiling is not the cause, it's the symptom. So let's find what the cause is and really get at it. This is an opportunity.
But we have to be willing to go there. I mean, it is all about this debt ceiling and whether or not we're going to allow the president to borrow more money. And, without the proper budget restrictions, without a balanced budget amendment, without the cuts that are necessary, we're going to say no.
And remember, it's not a complete shutdown. 60% of the money will still be coming in. It just means that 40 cents on every dollar that we're borrowing, we won't be able to borrow anymore. So the government won't be a complete shutdown.
I think how serious we are about making real reform is in Barack Obama's flip-flop this week about his new budget proposals, his State of the Union 2.0.
Frank,
you agree?
Americans are used to setting our own course, but we're on a course where at some point, we will not have the option of raising our debt limit. Our lenders will tell us we're done.
I think this debt ceiling vote really comes down, are we going to be fiscally responsible? And are we willing to accept the fact that this is a challenge? There is pain that's going to come for this country. And are we willing to accept that pain now, or we want to push it off to our children and grandchildren?
Well, and I would challenge that. Pain not for the country, pain for the government. The government needs to pull back. The government is the one that's going to feel some pain. The budgets that we're talking about this next week, we're going to be, through attrition, cutting 10% of the workforce. I don't know if your viewers know this, Sean, but about 10%, we grew by 10% in the last 2 years alone under Obama's budget. We have a radical shift to do, and we're going to keep fighting. The debt ceiling is one part of that.
I think, Frank, the American people know that Washington is broken. It's been broken under Democrats. It's been broken under Republicans. And I think this class of '87 understand that. We know that it's going to take not a swerve in the road. We've got to do a U-turn regarding our fiscal discipline that we have not seen here. And that means drill down to the departments. Government is out of touch with the American people.
Would you close a department?
Would I close a department?
Yes.
I'm not against closing a department.
If housing and urban development were put up for a vote, who would close HUD? Raise your hands.
I think we got
None of you?
pieces of every department.
How about the Department of Commerce? Who would close the Department of Commerce?
Consolidate Commerce, Interior, and Agriculture.
Smart ways to do this. We
So
need
you have agencies duplicating each other, and you've got all this other stuff. And what we're trying to do is get into these agencies, look in their base budgets, look to see what is duplicative, what's not, what's our core mission. We really have to look at
Last
this.
comment.
I think the thing I would tell you is that we're very serious about making sure that our children enjoy the same economic opportunities that we had as Americans, the individual liberties, the personal freedoms that set us apart from every other country. That's what the 87 members of this freshman class are going to protect.
You've got 19 members here, Sean, all of them very serious people, prepared to do whatever it takes to make a difference in the country. Now, the question is whether or not they're going to get the credit for it, whether or not they're going to get the opportunity for it, and whether or not the White House is going to participate with them in this effort to do it. Only time will tell.
Hey, Frank, tell everybody if we'd love to invite them back every month or two and continue this discussion. Really fascinating and very important. These are transformative times. Thank everyone for being with us. We appreciate it.
And Sean, you're going to see more of them on Sunday evening, so check out Fox News this weekend.
All right, and coming up, wait until you hear where your tax dollars are going. One Minnesota school district is paying to send some of its teachers to a conference on white privilege while they are laying off 94 teachers. Where are their priorities? We'll debate that next, straight ahead.